Hello, manager. This is your strategic planning and performance management coach, Victor Mark Romo. Today we're starting a whole new course. We just finished a huge and important course in strategic planning. I hope you can check it out. Today we are going to talk about leadership, humble leadership, the power of relationships, openness, and also trust by Edgar H. Schein and Peter H. Schein. The great leadership, organizational culture, and management academics. So, welcome and let's begin. What will this course will be about? Do you find yourself mired in an individualistic, competitive culture of management in which leadership is always about a superstar doing something extraordinary and heroic? Would it help to think of leadership not as the 7 steps you must take to lead, but as the energy that is shared in a group that is accomplishing something new and better? This course proposes a relational view of leadership as a process of learning, sharing, and directing new and better things to do in the dynamic interpersonal and group processes that characterize today's organizations and business units. Such leadership processes can occur at any level, in any team or work group, in any meeting, in tight or open networks, in collocated or widely dispersed work units, and across all kinds of cultural boundaries. Leadership can come from group members as often as from designated or appointed leaders. It will rotate unpredictably as the tasks of the group change in the volatile markets that are changing at an exponential rate and speed. With this view, leadership is always a relationship, and truly successful leadership thrives in a group culture of high openness and high trust and high helping. Leadership and culture can be seen as two sides of the same coin, and culture is quintessentially a group phenomenon. Through this course focuses on a new model of leadership. It is equally a course about culture and about group dynamics. The traditional 20th century culture of management can be described as a transactional set of relationships among designated roles that unwittingly creates conditions of low openness and low trust, so therefore make truly effective leadership a difficult task. We will refer to these transactional relationships as level 1, referring to the concept of levels of relationships that was first introduced in 2016 in the book Humble Consulting by the same authors. So, we propose humble leadership as a model that is intimately tied to a more personal, trusting, and open culture built on more personal intragroup and intergroup relationships between organizations and business units, and it is intertwined with our tasks of strategic planning and performance management. We emphasize that the process of leadership can be conceived of as distinct from traditional vertical hierarchy and individual heroic performance, leading in business and in the military, directing in the arts, convening and organizing social and political groups, coaching professional teams, sport teams, and founding new organizations, all have in common that such leadership occurs in groups and hinges on open and trusting relationships within those groups. Only level 2 relationships within those groups enable all members to be inspired to work at their best. This course is about reasserting that the core of organizational longevity is in the interaction of social, emotional, and cooperative human beings in various kinds of personal relationships to each other. So, humble leadership can be anything from convening groups to becoming a catalyst that enables them and then disappears until needed again. This model does not displace other models, such as servant or transformative or even inclusive leadership, but it is, in a sense, a process, the dynamic element that has to be present in any of these models for them to succeed. Humble leadership concerns itself with creating the culture that makes powerful forward movement sustainable as a world of organizations, work, strategy, and teams evolves. Who this course is for? This course is for all managers and leaders who have the motivation, the scope, and the flexibility to create change in their organizations and business units. Humble leadership is most needed in our corporations, but is equally relevant to the other sectors of society. For example, medicine, arts, political institutions, not-for-profits, sports, community, and so on. In fact, we often see archetypes of our model of humble leadership in such community organizations, in sports, and in the theater and performance arts. So this model is for leaders, but it is not just for those in leading roles. We assume leadership exists in all corners and all levels of organizations and business units, and teams and departments. We see leadership as a complex mosaic of relationships, not as a two-dimensional status in hierarchy, nor as a set of unusual gifts or talents of high potential individuals. This view of leadership should be especially relevant to readers and course takers who are in human resources and organization development, because we emphasize that humble leadership is as much about the soft skills as it is about technology, as I was saying, strategy, authority, discipline, and many more. We conceive of leadership as more than a role, as a collaborative relationship directed at doing something different, new, better, and it should therefore be relevant to maybe product managers, finance, operations, CFOs, board members, investors, doctors, lawyers, and other stakeholders in all the organization environment, and also for helping professionals and independent professionals like coaches like myself. We hope you find at any point in a value chain who can see the impact of designing optimal information sharing, open and trusting relationships that improve outcomes by improving the way groups reanimate and re-energize static role-based organizational designs, and also inspire these participants in these groups to give their best performance. As humble leadership is intertwined with high performance individuals, teams, and organizations, and the organization with its key stakeholders, as we were saying in the strategic planning course. So, what will be your gains by doing this course? Prescriptive leadership books. There are many great books and also courses to choose from. Offer lists of requisite skills, success formulas, and desirable attributes that will help you climb to the top, to invent the next big thing, to change the world. There is little doubt in our minds that great leadership have contributed to the explosive growth in innovation, global expansion of leadership and organizations, and also financial success that characterized the 35 years from the early 1980s to our today. Our concern is that these focus on heroes and disruptors with the right personal values and visions will only go so far in preparing any one of us for the work we will face in the next years, maybe 20 or 30 years. What if we proposed that you can reframe the personal challenge of improving your leadership skills into a collective challenge of helping to improve how your groups and teams and organizations and stakeholders perform? Consider this course as a way to take the pressure off you to do it all, instead of heading into work wondering how you alone can solve the problems. What if you went to work committed to sorting it out with a partner, a group, a large or small working team, or a peer working team? It's not up to you alone to solve the problem, to lead to greatness, to change the world. It is up to you to create a learning environment in which you and your group can cooperate in identifying and fixing the process that solve problems maybe then change a little bit the world for the better, or only your managerial, leadership, and organizational experiences. So, we hope this course gives you some new ways to ask questions. This is a very important topic throughout all this course. Asking questions. So many ways to learn. In some examples of valuable leadership that have helped others create change and real growth. So, how this course will be organized? In units 1 and 2, we will describe our vision of humble leadership and the relationship theory that serves as the foundations. We will share some stories in units 3, 4, 5, and also 6 that illuminate what we see as humble leadership success, as well as cases where humble leadership did not develop, was stifled, or did not have a way to succeed. We will then look ahead into Unit 7 to highlight some trends we see forcing and reinforcing here and now. Humility, personalization, group sense making, and team learning. All the key components of humble leadership. In Unit 8, we will suggest how humble leadership and related group dynamics may advance our thinking and our critical thinking about a broader managerial culture and theory put into practice. And in Unit 9, we will propose what you can do by way of further reading, self-analysis, and skill building to enhance your own humble leadership proficiency. So, said this, let's begin. We will be making a very important model, which are some foundations of the humble leadership course. This is called The Art of Helping by the same authors in a modularized way of doing it in a peer group environment. So, in order to continue, try to gather with 3, 4 colleagues, your boss, your peers, some reps, and try to discuss the art of helping model that we will be doing prior starting this course. Is for the environment setting, so we can stretch up a little bit, warm up our leadership critical thinking muscles, and can start with the humble leadership course. As the past course on strategic planning, this will be based in video models in YouTube and also in the Talent LMS Strategize website. So, said this, let's begin. I hope you enjoy and learn a little bit as I am enjoying learning while doing this course. Welcome. The art of helping. This will be an introductory exercise in order to stretch our leadership muscles. The authorship of this model, based in the methodology of coaching ourselves, is Mr. Professor Edgar Schein, which is the Society of Sloan Fellows Professor of Management at the MIT Sloan School of Management in Cambridge, Massachusetts. He investigates organizational culture, process consultation, the research process, career dynamics, and organization learning, leadership, and change. Professor Schein has been a prolific researcher, writer, teacher, and consultant throughout all his life, and works hand to hand with his son Peter Schein, which is the co-author of our Humble Leadership book and course. Besides his numerous articles in professional journals, Mr. Professor Edgar Schein has authored almost 15 books. So, let's begin. Let's reunite with 3, maybe 4 peers or participants. Please, each of you one share and reflect on a story about something that happened to you or around you at work during the last, let's say, 1 or 2 weeks. This could be a story about a recent meeting, an event, a notable interaction with your peers, with your boss, with some of your key stakeholders, let's say suppliers, or corporate, or clients, or other business units or organizations. The topic to reflect on is helping. How do you help a peer? How did a peer help you? Please remember that interaction and write it down, and then share them with your colleagues. So, set this, let's begin with our overview. Helping is not about what you think would be good for the other person, and not necessarily the advice you want to give to them, but figuring out what is really needed and supplying that. So, this model, the art of helping, based on the methodology of humble leadership, invites you to explore the dynamics of helping in order to contribute to a climate of mutual help so your organization can flourish. Today's work challenges can be complex. Teams are working within a multicultural context, sometimes across great distances in a virtual environment. Team leaders must rely more on their reports in in areas where they lack expertise, especially in regards to safety issues. Additionally, as organizations become more socially responsible, they will need help from other sectors, such as government or community, to thrive in a newly structured and virtual way of working. This topic will guide you through the pitfalls of the helping process. Today's model will help you to nurture a climate of trust in which coworkers feel they can come to you to both offer and receive help. Appreciate the roles a helper can play and when each is appropriate. Practice an inquiry process to learn how best to help. So remember, the art of helping is a foundation of the humble leadership process that we will be discussing in our humble leadership course. But what is helping? Helping is to enable others to do something that they cannot do alone. For example, a parent lends a child a hand. Spouses collaborate. A colleague contributes to the team. Despite how fundamental helping we think it is, we rarely reflect on the dynamics of the helping relationship. So, let's make a pause and reflect. Reflect individually on the following questions. You will not share your answers to this. Just reflect them for yourself and write it down. How helpful is your organization? Or do you think your organization is? Where would you put organization on a scale of 1 to 10? 10 as the most helpful. Why is this? Are people approachable? Do you get the help you really need in order to succeed? Please pause, make some memories of your recent interaction with colleagues, within your team, department, business unit, or organization. Question 2. Now briefly reflect individually and then share some of your insights with the group. Are you personally comfortable asking others for help? Why or why not? This has to be with your leadership personality or your working personality. Are you willing to ask for help or not? Do you feel in this area more doing it yourself way or only asking for help way? And are you comfortable giving help? Do you make the time to help others? Do you feel helping others takes you away from your own tasks? What do you think about this? Give yourself a grade. The 10 being the most helpful. Write down your answers and please share them with your group. What goes wrong in helping? There's helpful help and unhelpful help. How often have you asked for help only to come away disappointed? Or leaped in to help someone and later discovered your efforts weren't even appreciated. What is often called help is frequently unsatisfying for the recipient. So, questions again. Number 1. Individually reflect in silence on the following questions. Then move to question 2. Think of a time you asked someone for help and you did not get the help you needed, or you witnessed this happening. What went wrong? Think of a time you asked someone for help, or you saw someone ask someone else for help, and help was given in a satisfactory way. What allowed this to happen? Try to remember some interactions, write it down. 2. Now reflect together as a group. What can make giving help so difficult? Share some thoughts about why helping can be difficult, and what can make receiving help so difficult. What is your personal attitude towards help from other people or peers? Are you open to receive help? Are you close to receive help? Is it about your personality? Is it about your working style? Pause a little bit, reflect, discuss with your colleagues. Helping unbalances the relationship. In the discussion on the previous section, you may have alluded to the fact that a person asking for help becomes temporarily vulnerable and dependent, while the helper is temporarily empowered and one up. This power imbalance, the dependency of the helpee on the helper, and the ambiguity about what the helper will do, creates a certain level of tension in both individuals. Much of what goes wrong in the helping process is a failure to acknowledge this imbalance and deal with it effectively. When it does not go well, not helping when help was needed, giving uninvited or unasked help, giving the wrong kind of help, or not sustaining long-term help. We run the risk of losing status and offending the person whom we are trying to help. Think of how you feel when a colleague jumps in with premature recommendations instead of taking the time to really understand your situation, or how offering help when it has not been asked for can be experienced as insulting, in that it implies that you cannot manage on your own. True help can only occur if the helping relationship can be equalized in order to solve the issue. When helping works well, both parties, helper and helpee, gain status. So, roles for providing help. To build a successful helping organization and a helping relationship, no matter how brief it may be, the helper must build up the status of the helpee. The helper can do so by choosing one of the three temporary roles that will guide the helping relationship, and by knowing when to switch roles. These three roles are as follows. The expert, who provides the needed information or service. Once the expert provides their solution, The helpee is dependent upon it. The role is almost never appropriate at the beginning of the helping relationship because it is difficult to know what the helpee actually needs. He or she may not want to reveal this because they feel vulnerable or one step down. Role 2. The doctor is the one who diagnoses the situation and provides help in the form of prescription as a cure. This gives the helper even more power and is an expansion of the expert role. The challenge is knowing when to enter into the doctor role based on sensing when you know what is really needed and when you have gained a sufficient level of trust to ensure that the helpee will appreciate and actually do what you prescribe. So, this role has the trust thing in its importance. And the role number 3, process consultant, who first inquires about the nature of the help needed, why it might be needed, and how it might be best gotten. The process consultant creates a situation where the helpee will reveal more and in doing so gains status and increases trust. Ultimately, help should empower the helpee so that they can help themselves, now or in the future. In this role of process consultant, you may take a few minutes to discuss what has already been tried and the helpee's expectation and concerns before shifting into the expert or doctor role. So, let's think back to your example of unhelpful help discussed at the beginning of this model. Which role did the helper initially assume? Share your thoughts. Which role was most likely in your case the giver of unhelpful help? Expert, doctor, or process consultant? Have a minute, write your thoughts, share them with your peers. So, let's talk about a solution. The humble inquiry, which is another foundation of our humble leadership course. That is why we are discussing this model first. Being in the process consultant role relies on what I call humble inquiry, the art of asking questions in order to draw out what is really happening with the other person. Humble inquiry requires putting your ego aside, genuine curiosity, and asking questions to access your ignorance. The first minutes of humble inquiry may simply involve careful observation and listening. The critical point is not to stereotype the situation even if it looks like something familiar. You are only a hearing device, without ego and without prescribed knowledge. For example, think of the child who comes to her father asking, "Please help me with my homework." Instead of simply helping her, the father could ask, "Why? What's happening?" Only to find out that the child is having social challenges at school. In the other way, only helping right away would not be able to identify that problematic pattern. So, humble inquiry invites three things. Number one, it reveals information on what is wanted, needed. It informs you how can you actually help and what role to be in. Remember the roles: the expert, the doctor, the consultant. It equalizes the relationship by raising up the helping. Please, any thoughts, questions, or insights on the concept of humble inquiry so far? Please put them in the comment section and also share them briefly with one or two ideas as a group. Types of inquiry. When engaging in humble inquiry, it is not just enough to ask more questions. Some forms of inquiry can have a very negative effect. We can look at 4 types of inquiry in the figure pointed here. We can look at these 4 types to shape a helping conversation. It is pure humble inquiry, or diagnostic inquiry, or confrontation inquiry, or process-oriented questions. Each type of inquiry has a purpose, and there are some examples. Please try to review each type of inquiry and have some reflections and interactions with examples. So we can go to our helping exercise. 1. Get into pairs. You can have also a group of 3. Person A is a helping with a real problem he or she is personally facing at work. Person B is the helper. Person C is the one like a silent observer of the helping process. 2. Person A begins for asking help. Person B responds for about 10 minutes by asking various types of questions and offering suggestions when appropriate. Use the 4 types of inquiry as we see in the figure listed. Think of the roles. Do you remember? The expert, the doctor, the consultant. Person C. If your group is one of 3, silently observes and writes down any insights that they may have. What type of questions should they ask and when? Do you think they were appropriate questions in order to take the problem or to solve the problem? Was it a good kind of helping? 3. Afterwards, with a larger group, each helpee should share what they found helpful. If there was an observer, they also can share their notes and observations. Each helper, or the person B, can now share the experience of the helping process. So let's debrief. As a group, decide what kind of behaviors were considered the most helpful, what kinds of questions were most helpful, which roles were most helpful in order to help the expert, the doctor, or the consultant, or maybe a mix of two or even the three. The helping conversation. In general, a helping conversation can progress like this. Pure humble inquiry questions are the best at the beginning to assess the issue and promote an equal dynamic. Diagnostic questions are then also useful to deepen the helper's appreciation of how much the recipient might be able to help him or herself. Confrontive questions are helpful when it is clear that the client needs outside help because he or she cannot solve the problem by himself. The expert or doctor role then are appropriate. The process-oriented questions are ideal when the helper senses tension or maybe some bit awkwardness. Is there anything you wish to mention that you haven't yet before? So we can move to the last part of this model. Please share them, write it down. Let's go forward. Effective help can happen when both helper and helpee are ready and when the relationship has been equalized. The helper needs to appropriately choose and shift helping roles, the expert, the doctor, or the consultant, but always needs to start with pure humble inquiry. Despite a genuine desire to help, the helper never has all the answers, and it is the helpee who owns the problem. Both participants must remain conscious of not oversimplifying the situation, especially when dealing with complex dynamics involving culture or hierarchy in the organization or the business unit. Let's share. What have you learned about helping and about yourself during this model, this foundation model for humble leadership? Do you think humbleness is important in order to help more effectively? What will you do differently in your future helping interactions or asking for help interactions? Please try to write down your answers and discuss briefly with your peers. Share your thoughts with each other. Do you think this was a useful way to spend your time? As a result of this session, do you have any personal action plans or items that you can follow up later? Are you clear about what you are each committing to do after this session? Try to write a map about the participants in this session and your future commitments. It will be great way in order to start the next module or the next course. So action is in the table and we can learn and follow up. So that's it. We finish this coaching ourselves topic, which is a foundation of our humble leadership course by Edgar and Peter Schein. This was the art of helping. This is Victor Mark Romo speaking, your strategic planning and performance management coach. Please, any question or comment, I will be very glad to assist you. So, in the next module or in the next unit, we are starting with our humble leadership course. You are very welcome. So, goodbye and have a nice day.